Welcome to This Explainer. Seriously, I am so excited you're tuning in, because today we are tackling one of the absolute most profound economic shifts of our lifetimes. We're unpacking Thorsten Meyer's brilliant essay on what happens when intelligence is free. You know, right now, everyone is totally fixated on this idea that AI is just going to become an abundant, dirt-cheap commodity, basically seeping into our economy exactly like electricity until it's just everywhere. But here is the multi-trillion-dollar question. If intelligence itself becomes nearly free, where on earth does the actual economic value go? Where does the money, the power, and the true scarcity actually pool? Well, that is exactly what we're going to uncover today.
So, here is the map we're going to use to navigate what we can call the Great Inversion. We'll look at 1. Intelligence as a commodity. 2. Scarcity 1. The fleet. 3. Scarcity 2. Human accountability. 4. Scarcity 3. Finite attention. And finally, 5. The threat of cognitive atrophy. All right, let's get right into it.
Okay, Section 1, Intelligence as a Commodity. We've really got to start with the honest version of this AI abundance thesis, because it totally sets the stage for everything else we're going to talk about.
Now, there's this massive illusion out there that frontier AI labs are selling a luxury good, a bespoke model wearing this coveted crown. But honestly, that crown gets traded basically every month. The reality is they operate much more like a refinery. These frontier labs are actually commodity producers. They're selling fungible reasoning pretty much the exact same way a refinery sells crude oil or a utility sells a kilowatt hour. Meyer actually points out that on his own infrastructure, he just routes work to whichever model gives him the best answer per unit cost. He switches without a second thought the moment a better trade appears. I mean, that is pure refinery behavior. They're all just trying to offer the absolute best intelligence to price trade at every latency and every possible price band.
And Thorsten Meyer just hit the nail on the head here when he said, when something becomes abundant, it stops being the thing you get paid for. It's so true, right? A frontier AI model is basically a rapidly depreciating asset. A competitor can match it or distill it down in a matter of months. So if raw intelligence is on this steep curve toward being priced like a basic utility, the first thing we have to do is stop asking who has the smartest model. Instead, we have to urgently ask, what does not commoditize when intelligence does? Where exactly does the scarcity go?
Well, that brings us right to Section 2, Scarcity 1, the fleet. Let's look at the actual physical reality behind the cloud.
We kind of have this habit of thinking about AI as just some magical, invisible cloud of algorithms, right? But the physical reality is literally staggering. Think about it. When crude oil is cheap, the durable advantage isn't owning a single barrel of oil. It's owning the refinery, the pipeline, the port. So when intelligence is cheap, the durable advantage is the physical capacity to actually turn electricity into tokens. We're talking gigawatts of energized power. Massive, liquid-cooled data centers packed with chips. It takes like 10,000 workers in 18 months just to build out that physical capacity. You can't just conjure a data center out of thin air with algorithmic cleverness. The real durable moat was never the intelligence itself. It's the physical means of production.
So here is the bottom line. Sovereignty lives in the fleet. Meyer, who's writing from a European perspective, turns this into a massive macroeconomic warning. If the scarce, value-holding layer of this entire AI economy is physical production capacity, the fabs, the memory, the land, the power, then a region that only consumes intelligence but doesn't produce it, they've got a major problem. If you just consume that abundant intelligence, but you don't own the infrastructure, you have effectively outsourced the only layer that holds actual economic value. Being a brilliant user of AI is fantastic, for sure, but it absolutely is not sovereignty.
All right, moving right along to Section 3, Scarcity 2, Human Accountability. We're pivoting away from gigawatts and data centers to something way more personal, and honestly, a lot more reassuring for our own careers.
Okay, quick question for you. Would you want an AI CEO? Really think about that for a second. Even if the AI could crank through spreadsheets 1,000 times faster and predict market trends flawlessly, nobody actually wants an AI CEO. Why is that? Because even in a world where superhuman intelligence is on tap, we structurally prefer humans. We are hardwired to care about what other people care about. In business, customers don't just want the smartest possible decision. They want someone who can be trusted, praised, blamed, and ultimately held responsible. Accountability is fundamentally a human-to-human relationship. You literally cannot delegate that to a machine you can't look in the eye.
So how do we define our greatest asset here? Human judgment is that specific ability to decide what matters, what is actually worth doing, and crucially, the willingness to own the consequences. The most valuable thing you produce isn't the raw analysis anymore. The models can do that for pennies. The truly valuable thing is the byline. It's a named human standing behind a judgment, staking their reputation on it. So as reasoning gets cheaper and cheaper, your personal stake and your willingness to stand behind a decision becomes exponentially more valuable. It is the perfect, scarce complement to cheap AI reasoning.
Okay, so we've got the physical fleet and we've got human accountability. Let's hit Section 4, Scarcity 3, Finite Attention. This right here is the ultimate ceiling on this entire economic boom. We are hurtling toward a massive, massive bottleneck. On one side, you have uncapped machine cognition. Every developer out there is going to tell the machine, hey, spend a ton of compute thinking on my behalf while I sleep, because generating those ideas costs practically nothing. But look at the tiny slice of human bandwidth. A human being can only absorb, direct, evaluate, and act on so much information in a day. If models get smart enough to build everything we ask for, but our attention just physically cannot absorb that output, well, even uncapped demand hits a brick wall. The wall of what one single person can meaningfully use. The bottleneck is the interface. Enormous economic value is going to be captured by whoever figures out how to help one single human meaningfully metabolize the output of 1,000 tireless AI agents. How do you direct them? How do you review their work without spending 24 hours a day reading logs? Whoever solves this human bandwidth constraint captures the value, because the ultimate scarce resource at the end of this AI abundance story is just us. It's our attention. Finally, Section 5, the threat of cognitive atrophy. We're shifting from macroeconomics to a deeply personal warning. This is a silent cost that doesn't show up on any balance sheet.
Let's walk through how this trap actually works, because we've seen this with historical tools before. Step 1. A capability becomes abundant and practically free. Step 2. We start outsourcing not just the labor of thinking, but the actual muscle of it. We get lazy, right? And then Step 3. We wake up a decade later, having completely lost the ability to evaluate the very systems we depend on. The real danger here isn't some sci-fi Terminator-style rogue AI. The real danger is that we let ourselves get way too soft to check the machine's work. If we can't evaluate the output anymore, we've handed over our decision-making power to the machine entirely by default.
This is exactly why Meyer says keeping capability distributed and keeping my own understanding sharp are the same act. He actually builds local first and runs models on his own hardware just to stay close to the metal. It's not necessarily because it's cheaper, honestly a lot of times it's not, but the alternative is total dependence on a few distant, giant utilities that you neither control nor really comprehend. By intentionally keeping your own understanding sharp, you fight off that exact cognitive atrophy we just talked about.
So, I want to leave it with this final provocative thought. When the machine can grant almost any wish, do you still know which ones are worth making? As intelligence becomes a completely abundant, dirt-cheap commodity, the absolute most valuable thing you have left is knowing which wishes are actually worth making, and fiercely protecting your ability to tell the difference. Please, don't let the abundance of machine thinking talk you out of doing your own. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer. Keep your human judgment sharp, and I will see you next time.